What is up, and welcome to Bruin Bible, episode 14. Kind of a somber episode, as we're going to be breaking down UCLA's loss to Fresno State, unfortunately. But I'm so lucky to have my man James William in the house. He's with the Orange County Register, and he does SoCal Sports out there in Southern California. We're going to be breaking down the loss. We're going to be talking about the upcoming Stanford game this weekend. Kind of go around the Pac-12 as well. But James, how are you doing today, my man?
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Watched a couple episodes as I was getting ready, especially for the season to start. I know you checked in with Ben and Mike and Tookney, so some good folks that you had on. And so I'm happy to be part of it and look forward to the conversation we're going to have. Dude,
well, it's an honor to have you on. Let's just kind of get down to it. Tough loss this weekend, 40-37. Fresno State pulled it out. Regardless how you feel, I mean, this is a very good football team. We saw this team go into outs in Oregon and give the Ducks a run for their money the week before they went to the Horseshoe and beat Ohio State. So this team is very solid all around, and they came in and they had their way with the Bruins. Were you in the house for the game?
I was in the house for the game. It's kind of interesting because as fun as it would be to cover a 3-0 team going into the start of conference play, you know, I kind of had them projected 2-1 to start, but I don't know if I would have had it against Fresno. I thought it maybe would have been against LSU. I mean, obviously, as we continue to learn about LSU and what that win may actually be, obviously still a big win just considering the program and how far removed they are, or how, you know, not far removed from a national championship. But I mean, the Fresno game, I think the famous quote is, they are who we thought they were. And, Jake Haener, he's the real deal. And if they didn't know that before, especially watching the Oregon game and whatnot, they definitely learned about it at the Rose Bowl over the weekend. So the dude, he put together a gutsy performance. And one thing I've noticed about Chip Kelly, and obviously knowing and getting to talk with Chip Kelly and seeing how he is on a daily basis at practice, he's a very humble and approachable guy, and he takes it upon himself to, during the LSU game, before the game, I saw him go over to Derek Stingley Jr. and Elias Ricks and, kind of talk to them a little bit before the game, kind of, I guess, whatever, maybe wish them luck or, just kind of offer some advice or whatever they do during those kind of conversations. I don't know if he did it before the game with Jake Haener, but I know he did after the game. He made it a point to go over there and talk to Jake Haener, and he told him, and he mentioned it during the post-game press conference, like, that was one of the best quarterback performances he's seen when he's been on the opposing side of the field. So that says a lot considering some of the guys that Chip Kelly has gone against and had to strategize for. So, and obviously, he's a Pac-12 quality quarterback. Obviously, he was at Washington before deciding to transfer. So it's not like, this isn't someone who could totally keep up with the Pac-12 defense. I mean, if we didn't know already, then again, we do now. So excited to see, just where Haener and all them go from here. But obviously, we're here for UCLA football, and there's some work that needs to be done.
I think you're right, man. And this is a Pro Chip Kelly, podcast. We love him in Westwood. He's a phenomenal coach, but that defensive side of the ball really needs to kind of, tighten up, especially in the secondary. We are allowing, as a secondary, we're 126th nationally in yards per game now through the air. And this has been a constant problem with Jerry Azzinaro there as coordinator. In the first two games, you're kind of thinking to yourself, maybe we can kind of get back on track with this defense. The run defense looked great through the first two games. Ronnie Rivers is a guy that showed out against us. I mean, he had 136 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Got to tip your cap to him. Jake Haener, the guy you were talking about, 455 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns. Guy balled out, and the most impressive part was at the end, the hip injury. He led them on a 75-yard game-winning drive with that. I was expecting to see shades of Byron Leftwich back in the day where his linemen are carrying him down the field, something like that.
To that – go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. Go for it.
So, to that point, though, because So it's an interesting perspective. We're in the press box. We're higher up in the Rose Bowl. So, we're looking through binoculars and different things. I mean, we can see pretty well without binoculars, but, to get a real feel of what's going on down there, you need binoculars and stuff. So it's just weird because when you watch TV and the cameras are close and you're watching the TV and you're listening to the commentators, you kind of know that he's hurt or what the issue is. When we're in the press box, I mean, there's TVs on, but it's not, the sound's not playing. We don't have a full idea of it. So it was kind of hard to make out when he got hurt or how it happened or what. But there was a point in time where I don't remember what it was that got them off the field before DTR hit Kyle Phillips for that touchdown on the following drive, on UCLA's last drive. But the linemen kind of did have to scrape Haener off the field there, it looked like, because he was in pain and they did have to kind of carry him off. So I'm thinking, UCLA is going to – I thought they were going to come back. They were going to find a way to win it. And they get the touchdown. They hold their end, and it looks like they are. And there's some time left, and I'm like, Haener literally had to get helped off. I didn't even think he was going to get back in the game for that final drive. I think there was like 14 – or no. Yeah, no, there was less than a minute. It was like 54 seconds. I didn't think he was even going to make it out for that. He does. He completes. I think I just got finished writing. He completed 5 of the last 6 pass attempts in that final drive. I think the first one was incomplete on first down. But yeah, they marched down the field. 4 of those 5 completions were for 10 or more yards. 2 of them were like for 25 yards. Yeah, they kind of had their way with the secondary there. I think it makes it that much more painful if you're a UCLA fan, knowing that Haener was hurt and he still did the things that he did against UCLA in that final drive. We actually got to talk to some of the secondary today with Stephen Blaylock and Obi Ebo. Both of them, because there was some talk on Twitter and, even some of the reporters and stuff, we asked Chip Kelly about that yesterday, which was Monday. And he said, we need to tighten up on that coverage and kind of the way we would handle a situation if it were to arise like that again. Again, we talked to the DBs today, like I mentioned, and those guys, I thought it was kind of interesting because they said the game plan going into that game, and they were never told by the coaches, for those who always try to give Jerry Azzinaro a hard time. And that said, Brian Norwood as well, who's the assistant head coach and the secondary coach. The DB said that wasn't something that was part of the game plan. That wasn't something that they got from the coaches when it came to playing that loose coverage. They said it was kind of weird because they're like, they kind of did it on their own, which kind of sounds like they weren't listening to the coaches, or I don't know. It was kind of interesting. It's kind of hard to you don't want to make too much of it and take things out of context, but it was, and I think Obi Ebo kind of said that, hey, depending on the situation, the scenario, the down and distance and the way things play out, as you would expect, you kind of, change the way you play. And if I was a DB thinking, there's this much time left, if they need to score, they're going to have to throw it deep or they're going to need to get into the end zone. You're going to play farther back. Obviously, it looks like a bad decision when it doesn't go in your favor. But, I mean, I don't know if I would have done anything any differently from what those guys did. I did see the photo where there was that big red circle around this lane. It looked like where the only guy in between the guys up front in the secondary was the referee. So there was a big significant gap there, but it is what it is. I mean, it didn't work out in UCLA's favor, but, you can kind of question a lot of those things after the fact when it doesn't go in the favor of the Bruins. But, I just took that as something interesting that they said that wasn't part of the game plan. And I think they were actually asked, did the coaches tell you guys maybe to not play so loose? And I think Blaylock said, yeah, they did. And we looked back at the film and there were some instances where, we tightened up, but probably not as much as we should have. So obviously there's some things that they need to work out, and, we'll see where they go. They have a tough test with Tanner McKee coming up this week, a local kid from Corona Centennial, and is coming off a game against Vanderbilt. And made his first start against USC. So we'll see how things go. It should be a fun week.
It should be a fun week. I'm really excited. And I don't know what the injury report is on Quentin Lake, who got banged up at the end of that game. And it's unfortunately a recurring thing with Quentin Lake, the injury problems. But I mean, if you watch this guy in the field, talent has never been the issue with this guy. It's if he can play. He's an NFL player if he can stay out on the field. I fully believe that. He made some of the most impressive plays in the secondary against LSU, against Max Johnson in that third quarter to start for UCLA. So let's hope Quentin Lake is out there healthy. I want to talk about the offense a little bit. Tale of two halves for Dorian Thompson-Robinson. First half did not look great. Was not moving the ball well.
Yeah, no.
He had under 60 yards passing, if I'm correct.
I think he was like 1 of 5. I think he finished going into halftime 2 of 5 because I think he threw a short pass like in the final play before halftime or something. But he was like 2 of 5. Yeah, like 60 yards. But he was also leading and rushing at the same time. So normally I feel like maybe any other year, I mean, Felton aside, you would almost kind of expect to have Dorian Thompson-Robinson as someone who's kind of leading and rushing. But when you have Zach Charbonnet and Burton Brown in the backfield, your quarterback should not be leading and rushing whatsoever. No matter how good he is or how, what kind of plays he can make with the ball in his hands. When you have two studs like that, there's no way you should be leading. And I didn't think too much of it, only from the standpoint of, it was scoreless in the first quarter against LSU, and we kind of started to look like it was going to happen that way in the first quarter against Fresno State. I think Fresno State scored in the first quarter though, and I never expected UCLA was never out of it. They were the energy was a little low. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like they maybe just came out a little flat out of the bye week. I mean, more specifically with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, it was interesting. Obviously, and you don't expect them to say anything different, but they were saying coming out of the bye week they were going to be dialed in, focused, and obviously it's not like they were coming up of a high or too much of a high from the LSU game at that point. But I don't know. There's obviously a lot of pressure on DTR, and he told us yesterday that he doesn't look at social media during the week, and whether he does or not, I'm sure he's fully aware, being the head guy there for the offense and for the team in general, the face of that program. People are going to talk about him. He could have completed every pass, and they would have still found something to talk about him. But I mean, it was a little bit of a humbling experience for them. DTR said right after the game, he was kind of asked for his initial reaction and what went through his mind right after that loss to Fresno State. And he just said he was kind of in shock a little bit. Was a little bit shocking. I don't think it was shocking from the fact that they lost to Fresno State, but obviously that's part, but I think it was just more so, you did everything you could at that point. You got the ball to Kyle Phillips. You scored the touchdown. You just left time on the clock, and Fresno State needed to do what they had to do in the amount of time they were given, and it cost the Bruins there at the end.
And to his credit, 238 yards in the second half passing, 3 touchdowns. Did have the fumble where it was just a weird play. I've never seen that before. No one was in the vicinity, fumbled the football. But the problems that I had with the offense, not necessarily DTR, I do think DTR's got to start a little hotter. This has been the Hawaii game. He started off ice cold. Took him a couple drives against LSU, and then it took him the entire first half to kind of get going against this team. So if he can start off, just a little hotter, we know the talent is there. I don't know if he'll be an NFL quarterback when all is said and done, but the talent, this guy just started playing quarterback when he was a senior in high school. And the fact that he's come this far starting at a Pac-12 school says everything you need to know about him. Throws a very pretty deep ball. The 2 plays that come to mind, like Kaz Allen deep balls against Hawaii, and then that first drive against LSU, he had a perfect pass on the left sideline. The problem that I have with the play calling, if you were to ask me who are our 2 most important skill position players, it's Zach Charbonnet and it's Greg Dulcich. Charbonnet only had 6 carries. 6 carries. in that game. I mean, we got to feed the rock, to our best running back. And I mean,
Yeah.
he was averaging 13 yards a carry coming into that game last week. So I don't know. 6 carries is not enough for me. He wasn't even really able to find a rhythm because he had such few carries and things of that nature. And Greg Dulcich didn't even get a target, not even a throw
Yeah.
to.
I think he had 2, but I think they were incomplete. See, not to cut you off there, but I think the Greg Dulcich thing doesn't surprise me because it was kind of mentioned during Fresno State's press conference leading into the game, on how they obviously, I just got done listening to David Shaw talk as well, and he mentioned Greg as well and the caliber of tight end that he is. So it's not like last year where Greg is under the radar or he's not initially on your scouting report. The secret's out on Greg and everyone's fully aware of him now. But I think Coach Kelly even said, like, he was kind of asked on the comments that were made, not that they were bad, from Fresno State regarding Greg. And Chip Kelly said, hey, if they want a double team, if they want a triple team Greg, that's fine by us. We just won't throw to him, I think that speaks to the confidence Chip Kelly has about his offense, but also acknowledging, as everyone seems to have been doing, that Greg's a stud, and that they're going to get, if he gets the ball in his hands, he's going to make a play. So the best thing to do is try not to get the ball in his hands. So obviously they worked that part of the game plan out in their favor. But a few things I want to unpack that you said there. Going back to the slip of the pass that DTR had there. He said that the ball was wet. And people, not that I've seen anybody say that, but no one said, oh, of course you're going to blame it being wet or whatever. No, I haven't seen anyone say that, but I would imagine some people probably have commented on that. But to his credit, I did notice a bunch of guys slipping out there, just on the field. A lot of guys running, making plays, catching balls, running towards the sideline, and then slipping once they're on the sideline. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're watering the grass like 5 minutes before game time or anything. Obviously, I mean, I know they're not. I was there during that time, but it was a little bit chillier of a night, and I think that just goes with how late that game started. I'm not a weatherman, so I couldn't tell you how. I know it was cold. I'm sure there whatever you want when it comes to the weather, but. I'm sure that the weather probably played a part of it, and it was slippery on the field. The ball was probably wet, so I don't read too much into that or think too. It's a turnover nonetheless, and I know that's something DTR has told me several times that they want to improve upon, and obviously every team does. So the stat still kind of hangs in my head, and I know it was something that they were fully aware of from last year. 13 turnovers, 12 of them coming in losses. So you want to limit those turnovers. I think they might have actually won the turnover battle, if I'm not mistaken, this week. I know they had Kenny Churchwell had an interception for UCLA and whatnot, but
2 fumbles they got too, I think, in the
they had like
half.
2 fumbles. So. Yeah. So I think it was like 3-2, the turnover battle was. But also going back to Zach Charbonnet, yeah, I was in the press, so I don't claim to be a fan of UCLA or any team for that matter, just as someone who covers teams. But yeah, I was in the press box, and I know at least twice I said, "Where's Zach Charbonnet? Like, what are we doing here?" And again, I'm no coach. I don't know, they would know better than I would. But I'm just like, "Where's Greg? I mean, where's Zach Charbonnet? Like, what are we doing here?" He had the 6 carries. I have the stats here in front of me. Charbonnet had 6 carries, Britton had 9, and Dorian had 13 carries. Yeah, so I think for Charbonnet, I'm not surprised by the number of carries that he got, because I don't know if he's ever led UCLA in carries. I think they feed Britton Brown, and they work the short yardage and kind of chip away at people. I think the thing that was missing was that with Zach Charbonnet is that when he did get the ball, we didn't see the explosive play. I think that was the difference, is we didn't see him break away. We didn't see him in open space make plays, drop people down and run through people. Like we just didn't see a whole lot of that. And I think that was the biggest thing. Yeah, I'm looking. He finished with 19 yards. he didn't lose any yards, but he definitely didn't gain a whole lot. He only had 19 yards. His longest carry was 6. That was his longest run of the game. Normally he has 25-yard carry, 35 yards. Like, I mean, the explosive plays just weren't there. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to Stanford and what maybe we can expect from that. But yeah, just to impact some things you said there. Yeah, I think Zach Charbonnet was missing and Greg Dulcich was missing. Now, from what I've seen, what I've heard for today was Britton Brown was sidelined and kind of in and out of position drills today. So we'll have to see what the injury is there. I'll be back out at practice tomorrow. So we'll see. But yeah, I was at Monday's practice. Britton Brown was fine. He wasn't sidelined at all. So I'm not sure if that's something that happened yesterday, or something happened yesterday, or it could maybe just be a veteran day. I don't know. Just to go back to defense for a little bit now, since we're just kind of talking about injuries, Q Lake and Otito were two guys that were, and Mike Martinez as well, were injured, that I visibly saw injured, hobbling off the field, walking back to the locker room. Those are 3 guys that did miss Monday's practice and missed Tuesday's practice. Otito and Q Lake seemed fine during Monday's practice. They had helmets on. Usually, when you see guys sidelined, at least during the part of practice we're able to see, they're usually not in a helmet. They're usually just stretching. They're usually on the stationary bike. So we did see those guys stretching. I did see Q Lake kind of going through his back pedal and just kind of some individual defensive back stuff on his own. So I'm not entirely sure what the situation is there. They hold these practices in the morning during the daylight. So I'm not sure it's a concussion issue. I don't think he would be out there if it was concussions. I know Otito was a little slow to get up during the game. I maybe got helped off. Yeah, but those guys look fine. They were moving around fine during Monday's practice. I didn't see anything wrong with them. There was at least one. There was some shuffling around that we can also get to with the offensive line when it came to the 2 deep. One of the guys' name I probably can't even pronounce right or do justice by, but he was a second string guy for them, but he was injured. I'm not sure when that injury took place, but he was taken off the depth chart. But we did not see that with Q Lake and Otito. Both of those guys are still considered starters going into the week for the Stanford game. So we'll see. We don't get a whole lot of detailed updates when it comes to injury and the health of players from Chip Kelly or just UCLA in general. So, we're just running with unavailable day to day. We'll see where it goes. But we are able to just kind of peek over and whatever we can make out of it. But those 2 guys look fine. Mike Martinez was one of 2 guys in a walking boot, pushing one of those scooters around. So I'm not expecting him back this week. Quentin Somerville was in a walking boot. He kind of has been, I think. Yeah, the true freshman, going back to, I think, last week. I think since the beginning of the season. So we saw him on a scooter. So Mike Martinez was also on the scooter. Not expecting him back this week. So we'll see. I mean, they got Michael Ezeki there as another option in the tight end. So, and I know they would. I think they like having at least two tight ends on the field at some point during the offense. So maybe we'll see a little bit more of Michael, and we'll see where they go. But for what it's early in the week, but I'm gonna have Mike Martinez out. I think we're kind of questionable, and we'll see maybe a game time decision on Otito and Q Lake. But those guys were definitely missed out there, and I think I don't think the game is drastically different just on the way things played out if they are there. I mean, just considering Haener and the play of that offense, but the presence was definitely missed for sure.
Yeah, no, I feel you. With Quinn Lake, I think he could have potentially been back there and made some plays.
Yeah.
The problem that I had was, at least with Haener on that last drive, we know he can't move well. I mean, he's stumbling down the field. The one thing we've done consistently well under Azanero the last year plus is we got to the quarterback. We've rushed the quarterback. Why did we not do that? That is a problem I have. And to touch back on the Dulcich and the Charbonnet points. Charbonnet had a week off. 6 carries. That's not enough to get a running back going, I feel like. We got to kind of feed the beast. Some running backs maybe need, 5 or 6 carries to get going. For instance, I have like Dalvin Cook on my fantasy team in the NFL. He starts off the game like 5 carries, 7 yards, then he'll break off like a 20-yard, kind of chip away. You know what I mean? So you kind of have to like get them in a rhythm. And I think maybe off of the off week that was tough. My thing with Dulcich is maybe he was, getting a lot more attention on the defensive side of the ball. But what I do know is Chip Kelly is one of the best play callers in all of college football. Like this man, is an NFL head coach. If he wanted to go back to the NFL as an offensive coordinator, I think there's a lot of teams out there that would definitely consider having him. He's a genius when it comes to the offense, finding people open, getting the run game going. So for me, I think if they want to get Dulcich involved, I mean, he's arguably the best tight end in the entire country. I think you got to feed him the ball. I also want to give a shout out to Cam Brown, Texas A&M transfer. Huge game, 5 grabs, 111 yards through the air. So we were able to find yards outside of it, but maybe we can feed Dulcich for a similar play like he had against LSU or USC last year, where he breaks off that 60-yard touchdown. Last thoughts before we move on to Stanford. You got any?
Yeah, no, definitely. I got a few things. I actually started writing some things down, so we kind of got to everything. So I think going back to Greg real quick, I think too, if they were kind of putting a focus on him, or they put extra resources on him, by that I mean the Fresno State defense, they're probably there should have been some other opportunities or some other advantages that they could have maybe taken advantage of. I couldn't tell you what those are off the top of my head, but there had to have been something out there for them. Maybe they tried it. So actually, a few other things. Let me write some stuff down because we can go for a while. Just unpack. Obviously, it being the first loss, and I know Bruins fans are, everything was going right the first 2 weeks. We'll get to defensive pressure in a minute. I'm just going back to Zach Charbonnet. Another thing I wanted to mention though is one thing that I've written about. I don't know if I've written about it, but I've kind of said on some other interviews and stuff that the thing I've always kind of found interesting the first 2 games with the backfield is, they'll run Britton Brown. Obviously, he's listed as a starter. He'll start the game. They'll get him some carries. Then they'll have Zach Charbonnet go out there, and he'll just run through people, make a big play, and then we just don't see him the next drive. And it's just like, okay. And they just continue to move well, and Britton Brown moves the ball, and things kind of work out still. And, obviously they won games. But to me, it's just kind of like, and maybe for the long run, it's a positive to look at. But I think from those 2 games, I took it as you don't need the guys to totally be hot. You just, when they get the ball in their hands, they need to move the ball, or they need to find that explosive play to make. But I just found it interesting that, they really don't need to have them be hot or focus on, it's not like they need to abandon what they've been doing with the 2-back system. I think it's worked for them. It worked for him last year, obviously, with Britton Brown and Felton. But I just think, the explosive plays were missing. Maybe they just weren't there for Zach Charbonnet. Obviously, he's not injured. He wasn't, he's been practicing the last 2 days. So for Charbonnet. So I don't know. It hasn't been an issue. Maybe it was. They weren't too far enough. It wasn't like the game was ever too far out of reach that they really did have to focus on the pass. But obviously they did kind of work the passing a little bit more. I think that was something DTR and maybe just the offense in general were criticized a little bit. Was that passing game and getting DTR going in the passing game. But I think it was encouraging if you look at the LSU game, and even more so again looking at this Fresno State game. If there's something you want to take away, I think the passing game is a positive. I remember at one point, either before the season started, the DTR said one thing he wants to improve on or make a point of is to get the ball in as many guys' hands as possible. And if you look at the LSU game, that was definitely the case when you had 3 different guys score touchdowns: Chase Cota, Greg, and Kyle Phillips, all scoring touchdowns, all getting the ball, all getting love. And that's something I feel like I haven't seen a whole lot of since I've been covering the team. And because sometimes I'm like, man, Chase Cota's there and he's the number 2 option. There's no doubt he's talented and that
former All-American out of high school.
Yeah, and he's a dude for him. But I'm just like, why doesn't Chase Cota ever get the ball? Like, he'll get the ball once or twice, it's incomplete and it just doesn't happen. But I'm like, there's something we could do to get, do we got to start a hashtag or something to get Cota the ball, But I mean, there's other options out there with Greg and Kyle for sure. Those guys are studs, but it's just, yeah, I mean, if the focus is going to be on Kyle, if the focus is going to be on Greg, what are we doing as far as trying to get the ball to Chase Cota? I mean, that's something I would maybe consider, and I'm sure. I mean, they talk about these things. I'm sure. Obviously, Cam Brown this week stepping up, making some plays. A guy that we had a chance to talk to on Monday, and he had UCLA on. He actually was committed to UCLA in 2017. Decommitted in 2018. Decided to go to Texas Tech. Things didn't work out there. Decided to come back and give UCLA another shot. So, he, fitting in well. He's actually, the one thing he hasn't had to do is really start classes. They start classes this week. So we'll see how that stuff kind of works out for them and being around other guys, other students, and what that means for the COVID situation and all that. That may be another layer that we may have to end up talking about in the future. But for the meantime, everyone's healthy. Well, at least from the COVID standpoint. But again, yeah, just getting Cam Brown involved, I think was huge. I think that will mean a lot to them. Again, the passing game. I'm looking at my stats here: 113 yards on seven catches for Phillips, for Kyle Phillips, 7 catches, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns. So the passing game's going. Cam Brown, 111 yards and a touchdown. I mean, the passing game's going. So we people are gonna say DTR, this, that, and they're just running the ball. And what is DTR doing? I mean, you can't, then they're still going after DTR, but it's like he's throwing the ball now. They're moving it. The thing I would hear about too is, Zach Charbonnet and Britton Brown are great, and they're, really moving the ball and getting this team going, and a big part of the 2 wins. And but it's going to come down to DTR one of these games needing to really take charge of the offense and get him a win. Did he get him a win this past weekend? No. But if you want to look at a game where you're like, well, what does DTR do? Or how's he? This is a game you can look at where, hey, he's moving the ball. He got 2 guys over 100 yards receiving. I don't know what more you can ask for. And that's with Greg being limited just with the defense, probably giving him some attention. So, I think the offense is in a good place. The defense is where we kind of need to focus. Again, you talked about the defense in the pass rush, and obviously it was, something where I heard a lot about Jerry Azzinaro going on through my first 2 years covering the team, and a lot of complaining about Azzinaro. I thought some of that started to turn around after the first 2 games, and of course, when everything's going good and the wins are coming in, there's no complaints. Everyone's great. The defense is top tier. You lose the game and we're back where we started, right? But they have some things to address. We kind of talked about it already, but one thing I wrote before the game because I wrote about pregame. I wrote about Mitchell Gude, and he transferred in from Riverside City College. I actually went to Riverside City College. I was about 2 years or so before Gude, so I didn't really get to see him at RCC, but dude's definitely a stud, and I wrote about him because he's had four forced fumbles on the season in the first 2 games. So, I was kind of, it's hard to predict forced fumbles, and you're not going to say they're guarantees, but you kind of almost start expecting them to be the case when you get 2 in your first 2 games. So we didn't see that from him. There were forced fumbles, so it was good to see some other forced fumbles from other guys. I think Q Knight was one of them, but Agude, it was a bit of a quiet night for him. If you don't mind, let me look up the stats on him, just because he was leading the team in tackles. He was kind of obviously had to have been up there in top 5 tacklers for those first 2 wins. But I'm looking at Agude now, only 5 tackles and nothing else to show on the stat sheet. And I mean, again, when you make so much noise the first 2 games. You would think if you're a smart team, you're a smart offense, you are making it a point to stop Mitchell, and where he's at. So again, maybe that's part of it. And you know, they stuck to the game plan. Fresno did, and I think they made it work. A quiet night for Agude. I think another thing worth pointing out. You know, I talked about Brenton Brown was someone who was out, who you know was a full participant from what I saw on Monday, but was kind of in and out on Tuesday. Mitchell was also on that sideline there at some point, so looks like he has something to go with, something to go through there. I think one of the guys, I think Sam Connon from SI, one of the guys I usually see out there. I think it was him, or it might have been Ben Bulge, one of them. But I think they tweeted that Mitchell had something with his leg. You know, I'll call it up at some point. But something to keep an eye out for. I'll be looking to see what happens there. He was going through some drills and stuff, and he looked good. But I don't think the giddy up was all the way there. So we'll see. Yeah, a lot of the guys that we had high production from those first couple of weeks slowed down a little bit, and there's just some wear and tear there that started to catch up. You know, I think a lot of people were expecting some of that to happen and maybe benefit having that bye week, maybe coming off of that LSU game, and maybe we did, or maybe UCLA did. We just didn't get to see it as much because of the bye week and how light everything was. So they came out of this game banged up. I don't think people would have expected Fresno State to kind of put a beat down from an injury standpoint on UCLA, but they did kind of come hobbling out of that game, and it sounds like Stanford did too. We'll talk about Stanford here in a little bit, but yeah, Stanford didn't have a clean bill of health coming out of their game either. So.
Yeah, let's talk about Stanford, the upcoming game as the Bruins jump into the Pac-12 slate. They're going to be heading up to Palo Alto this Saturday to play a big-time game. And they're going against a Southern California kid, Tanner McKee, out of Corona Centennial. Very talented quarterback, 6'6". He's a big dude, and he's been awesome for them. He had he was the starting quarterback, turnover-free game, got 2 touchdowns through the air, guided them over USC in the Coliseum, which was a huge win. Was Clay Helton's last game as the head coach there at SC. And then he followed it up with another great performance against Vanderbilt on the road. So this will be him returning to home where he should be more comfortable under center. They've got a great 1-2 punch in the backfield with Nathaniel Pete and Austin Jones, 2 very talented running backs. And Bryson Tremaine, I mean, everyone talks about Drake London, you know, your Kyle Phillips, you know, all the talented receivers up in Oregon. This guy has 3 touchdowns in 3 games at the wideout position. He's making plays for Stanford. So this is a guy you cannot sleep on for the Cardinal. Give me what you're going into this game with. Maybe some predictions, something like that.
Well, you will get into some predictions in a little bit, but yeah, they're like I mentioned some injuries on Stanford as well, and you know, however you want to see it, maybe Stanford's considered maybe more of a run-heavy team early in the season, but they're gonna have to work the ball and they're gonna have to pass. I was telling you before we started recording, I was actually following up and listening to the Stanford press conferences from Tuesday, and Tanner McKee. You know, he said that, you know, they asked him, did you watch the UCLA game? What were your thoughts? What did you think of Hayner's performance and all that stuff? And, you know, obviously spoke well of Hayner and was impressed by him kind of getting it out through an injury. But he kind of like nonchalantly kind of mentioned like, oh yeah, like we're like as if we found some holes or we know some holes, like or something. But he indicated that, yeah, we're probably going to be throwing the ball. Like, you know, we kind of saw what the secondary was doing. And, you know, I think maybe Fresno maybe gave a little bit of a blueprint there on that secondary. So kind of indicated they're going to be throwing the ball, and I think they're going to have to throw the ball. You mentioned their receiver. I think he's going to be big for them and is a stud as well. But you also mentioned Pete and Austin Jones. I think we're going to see a lot of carries maybe for Pete. I think David Shaw indicated that Pete is going to get most of the carries, but, you know, they're going to have some other guys in the mix. From what I kind of picked up off of Shaw's comments, and unlike Chip Kelly, who is very limited with what he says on an injury report, it's kind of refreshing to listen to David Shaw talk and just kind of run through everyone that's injured, not injured, probable, out without even being asked. I was like, wow, that's kind of nice. But Austin Jones was on that list and is, according to Shaw, I don't think I heard him wrong, but I think Austin Jones is out for this game. Noah
Lost.
Williams, E.J. Smith, I think are some other running backs, and those guys are out as well. So the backfield got beat up quite a bit. So Pete's going to be getting the ball. And I think Sanders might be someone else that they consider getting the ball to a little bit more. But I think Austin Jones is out for him. Obviously, that's a big hit for them. I think he averaged like 91 yards during that shortened season in 2020 per game. But yeah, so we'll see what they do. Obviously, I think a glaring thing was Fresno State came into the game against UCLA not having a 100-yard rusher, and Ronnie Rivers got easily 100 yards plus on UCLA. So I think if they go back to what was working for them, and by that I mean UCLA's defense and stopping the run the way that they were the first 2 weeks, they can kind of put a lot more attention and try and overwhelm McKee. So again, you kind of have to try and not look at that game for that Fresno State game and try and go back to what was working for you in weeks 1 and 2, or week 0 and week 1 if you're UCLA. But yeah, Austin Jones being out, it's going to be big for Stanford, and be interesting to see. But I think, they're going to get the ball in the air more, and the pressure is going to be on that secondary now. I mean, you can't have a second bad week and they get back to 500.
Oh, man, yeah.
Oh, man, who knows where we go. But things started off so well.
I think there's still a ton of reasons to be optimistic. I think Fresno State, given what I've seen from them playing the Pac-12 teams, there's a lot of teams you could replace in the Pac-12 that have just not been great this year. Fresno State, I mean, dude,
this point,
going to outsing like that, I mean, that is super impressive for me. That is one of the toughest environments in all of college football. Nearly come out with a W there, and then go into the Rose Bowl and beat the Bruins. I mean, they've beaten the Bruins 4 straight times now. This is not a casual football team. This is a pretty, solid squad and program that they have going on there. But touching back to Stanford, man, I think it's going to be a game where the secondaries kind of got to come together, and that could be without Quentin Lake, which is a very glaring issue. Yeah. We hope he's healthy, knock on wood, on Saturday. We'll see what happens there. But, this is a game where, DTR, we saw what he was able to do. We can't put the loss on him. He drove a great drive at the end of the game to put UCLA up. Whether he went on to go for the 2-point conversion or not, I think that's a different discussion. But, I think he did everything he needs to do. I would like to see him start a little hotter this time, be in rhythm when things roll, after kickoff. He's got to be weary, though, of Caillou Blue Kelly, the corner for Stanford.
I've heard about him. Yeah.
2 picks. He had the 31-yard touchdown pick 6 against USC. He followed that up with another pick. 2 picks in 3 games. He's probably been one of the better Pac-12 corners so far this year. So keep an eye out for that. But I think UCLA, this is my prediction. I think we win 42-28. I think we get back on track. I think the run game kind of opens up again. Offensive line gets back to dominating the line of scrimmage like we know they can with Sean Ryan, Alec Anderson on the ends. And I'm hoping they get Dulcich involved. I'm hoping for like a 60-plus yard performance at the tight end spot and a touchdown in the red zone. I think that's a reasonable prediction. Bruins take it in Palo Alto on the road. What do you think?
I'm looking at 35-21 UCLA. I will say this, though. One thing, it was kind of weird because I don't know. The thought of Stanford comes up, and they were pretty solid under David Shaw, and they still kind of are. But
coach.
Definitely a great coach. The thing with that is they're coming off of 7 straight road games, and of those 7 road games, they've only lost 1, and that was a season opener against Kansas State on a neutral site. I think that, they play like in Arlington, Texas, I think for some reason. Like, I don't know why those 2 teams, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, so this is a team, and one of those losses or one of those wins for Stanford was coming into the Rose Bowl and winning in double overtime against UCLA.
It was a tough loss last year.
It was a tough loss to end the season, especially, when there was a lot of improvement, a lot of things to look forward to. So that was a little bit of a downer. And actually, David Shaw was asked about that. Where does that win against UCLA in overtime fashion at the Rose Bowl rank? in his coaching career. And he actually, I didn't know if he was going to downplay it or not, but he actually said, yeah, it was a significant win in his career for the Stanford program, just from the standpoint of all things considered. And, everyone went through a lot of the COVID stuff. There's no doubt about it. But I think, obviously David Shaw talking about his team and knowing what those guys went through and just, the day-to-day grind and on top of the pandemic as well. He said it was a special win for them, all things considered. Obviously going in there on the road and getting that game. He said that they won that first half, but didn't really win much of that second half against UCLA. UCLA getting back into that game. And he said it was about even play with Stanford getting the edge in those overtime periods. So, I'm looking for it to be maybe even. I think maybe I'm I was like, what did I say, 35-21 in favor of UCLA. Wouldn't be surprised at all if this game manages to get close. And, I'm a wrestling fan. So if Tanner McKee comes out of this game ripping the heart of UCLA, I'm nicknaming Tanner McKee the Heartbreak Kid, because if you saw what he did against USC, and a lot of people will say he got Helton fired, but I mean, I'm not going to put it past Tanner McKee. And like we said, a solid coach in David Shaw. I think this is not a team you take lightly. If you allow them to pick on the UCLA secondary, they will. Again, and I think too. If you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about the slow start there. I guess maybe I just want to pick your brain a little bit. So I think for me too, when you talk about a slow start for DTR, I guess you could point thing. I don't know. I just think when the running game is as solid as it is, and you want to look to establish the run game early so you can open up the passes later, I think maybe that's why we see a little bit of a slow start at times from DTR. I think the thing on DTR, especially in the season opener, and I think some of the season openers we've seen from him in the past, and maybe considering the talent and depth they had at those times, DTR felt like maybe he had to take it upon himself, and I don't know if he'd maybe ever admit that or not, to think he has to do everything. And maybe that's kind of where we saw some of the struggles there, even against a Hawaii team in the season opener. But, when you realize you have Greg as an option, Kyle as an option, Coda as an option, Cam Brown as an option, Charbonnet and Brown in the backfield, relax a little bit, and just play your game and just do what the coaches are asking of you. And, run the ball when you need to run the ball, and everything will be fine. So, I'm not too worried about a slow start from DTR, but you also don't want that to mean you go 2 of 5 in the first half, going into halftime, because then you have nothing to build off of or work off of. There's no confidence. You're sitting there at halftime looking at, what did I do in the first half to show that we can beat this team? Not that football players think that way, but even for me, I'm thinking that way. I'm like, 2 for 5. Who's to say you don't come out and you go another 2 for 5? So, it doesn't have to be right away. It doesn't have to be in the first quarter, but by the second quarter, you kind of need to have, if you're talking about using the run game and using the run game to open things up for you in the first quarter, for the second quarter, you should be able, and you should know what has opened up for you in the passing game and with your options, because the running game should be going.
Definitely.
So, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Every game's different, but I just think that's something that for DTR, by the second quarter, you need to get going. So we'll see. We'll see where they go.
I agree with that. And I'm a huge DTR supporter and fan. I think, last year, I think we really saw a jump in the shortened season. It was the first time he completed over 60% of his passes, 12 touchdowns, 4 picks. I know he made some, typical, unfortunate interception throws. The USC game stands out. There's a couple other ones. But for the most part, I saw a guy that had really improved since he had, got on campus. And I think what I was expecting was, if everything went well for him this year, this guy could make an NFL roster as a quarterback, whether that's, a ceiling of maybe a high second-round draft pick or something like that, because the game really fits his athletic style now, kind of the rollout pocket presence quarterback, able to fire downfield, change pace, with the running that he's able to do. But, it's been unfortunate because I just haven't seen it yet. And, the Hawaii game, that was tough. We went 2 for 5 in the first half. I just would like to see a little bit more consistency. Granted, he finished the game strong. I love that. But getting yourself in a hole like that, it didn't help us at all.
Right.
And it was just out of rhythm and things of that nature. LSU, he did make some big plays when we needed to. A lot of after the catch action, though, with, Dulcich taking it, making some defenders miss. Kyle Phillips getting out of a tackle down the sideline, making the big touchdown catch there. So, the talent's there. I just want to see my boy DTR ball out. That's all I want for him. I think every UCLA fan can agree with that. Yeah, we're ready, man. This is your time. This is your last year on campus. We're ready to see it because, in my mind, with the talent he has, I think he can literally be, if he put the pieces together, in the running for the Maxwell Award, if he was able to reach his ceiling, which is the top quarterback in the country. And, maybe if UCLA was able to kind of continue winning, maybe that could lead to just being a top 5 candidate in the Heisman. So for me, it's I'm just ready to see it. I know this is his last year's running out of time. And he, to his credit, we've talked about it, Fresno State second half, we saw the type of player that we wanted to see from DTR. He was making plays all around. But it's those slow starts that's been kind of setting the team back a little bit, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think for me it's I think you're breaking up there. Let me know when you're back. Are you there?
Really?
Yeah, you were a little bit, but can you hear me fine?
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. You can just edit that part out. So I think you make good points there though, especially for DTR. And I think going back to what you said was we saw great stuff from DTR and that offense and the way they finished and kept the game close with Fresno State. But I think the thing is you shouldn't have to be pressured or put into those steps. And I think we've kind of seen that with UCLA a number of times, last year, maybe even 2019, where it's you get put into these situations, you get into a hole. I think that it was they think they did a lot last year, the Colorado game to open the season. Maybe the Oregon game was a little bit closer, but they found themselves in holes and then came all the way back and made the games close. Just pretend it's already you're already in a hole from the jump and just play well. They show they can play well. They just don't be in a hole before you decide you have to play well. You know what I mean? So I think that's the thing for me. I think DTR could be a guy in those award conversations. And I mean, he already was to start the season, but I think the other thing to remember is it's not the end of the world. And I think the players have said that and know that because they've lost one game. I think, when you consider you started 0-6 under Kelly in non-conference play, you didn't have non-conference games last year. So that lingers even more a little bit going into the season. And then you start 2-0 in non-conference play. Then you just think you're world beaters and that you're going to, finish the non-conference season undefeated. You kind of get humbled a little bit and brought back to reality there. So I think this, I think Obi Ebo said it too, it gives you a chance to kind of learn. And, now I think it was Blaylock who said, now you know what a loss feels like. And if, you don't want that feeling again. So I think you'll get a little bit more of some inspired play from UCLA, and hopefully they can get back on track. And again, I think that bye week maybe played a little bit into it. I think one of the radio interviews I heard from Chip Kelly is if it was up to him, he would have been playing that week. He didn't want a bye week, and I don't think they needed it the way they were moving and the momentum they had. But that's just how the schedule goes. So I think this team's in good shape. I mean, when you look at the schedule, and I think we're going to be doing some of that here in a minute, we can break some of those opponents down. But there are some tough games coming up. I think there were some games I had circled as maybe a tough game, and maybe not. Maybe they're not as tough anymore. But I mean, if you lose to a team like a Fresno State and the way they played against Oregon and whatnot, it's not a horrible loss. And even in the loss, you kept it close and you were competitive throughout. So it's not like you got blown out to a Fresno State team that shouldn't have had any business blowing you out to begin with. So take it for what it is, move past it. Oh, they're a solid team.
They're a good team. I mean, I don't think it's a shame of competing with Fresno State because we've seen firsthand. I mean, it would not surprise me if their lone loss is Oregon, this team could finish in the top 10 this year. I mean, that's not a crazy. If their only loss is to the Ducks, who I expect to win the Pac-12 North, whether they take the whole Pac-12 is a different question. But, this is a team that, beat Ohio State. That's one of like the top three most premier programs in the entire country right now. So, when you hold your own against that team, arguably better than, Ohio State did, and Ohio State was at home. They were on the road. That's an incredible thing. Let's do it real quick. I want your final prediction. You're going with 35-21. Did I get that correct?
I went 35-31. Wouldn't be surprised if it gets a little bit closer than that, and we'll see what McKee does with Stanford. But I think UCLA will find a way to win.
I love it, man. Well, final record for UCLA, and do you think they make it to the Pac-12 championship from the South?
I think they represent the South at this point. I mean, if you just look at what Utah has been doing lately, if you look at who knows what USC is going to look like when it's all said and done. They're going through their little quarterback issue.
Dart looked good, though. Dart looked good.
Oh, he looked good. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. And it's almost the same situation as Tanner McKee. I mean, you look good. I mean, maybe you're not game planning for that quarterback. I mean, and I'm not, dismissing the talent of either Tanner or of Dart, but when you have guys coming in that first game and you weren't expecting them, you have a little bit of an edge there. But we'll see where they go. We'll see. I think Slovis is hurt. I think I heard Dart might be hurt too. I think they might even have to lean on their third string guy, who I'm blanking on at the moment. But we'll see. For UCLA, they should beat Stanford. They come back at home, a tough game against an Arizona State team, and Jaden Daniels. We'll see what they bring. Obviously, there's always a comparison and a head-to-head battle there with him and DTR. I think those guys even spoke on an interview together at Media Day. I saw that video on YouTube. I have to go back and look for that. I think that'd be kind of interesting. The Arizona game, you should win the Arizona game, right? We'll see.
Yeah.
So it's on the road. Anything can
We don't
happen.
even need to bring that up. I mean, they just lost to NAU. So
they can, but those are the games that worry me for a team like UCLA, and that might be the mindset too for UCLA fans, is like, you beat an SEC team last week or the week before, so why'd you lose to a Mountain West team, regardless of the fact that it's Fresno State? But it's like, I think they look at the conferences and think you did this, but why don't you do that? I mean, for Arizona, yeah, that's a team you should win, and they may not win a game all season, but I mean,
anything could happen.
Anything can happen for sure.
I will say this: if we lose to Arizona,
the wheels are coming off the bandwagon.
There might be a chance he doesn't come back next year, because that would be the most brutal loss.
Who did you say there might not come back?
Chip Kelly. If he loses to Arizona, he came into the year on the hot seat. If we lose to Arizona, that means the wheels have fallen off.
But I think too, and so the thing with Kelly, and I think Ben had brought it up, and Chip Kelly wasn't ready to have that discussion yet. I mean, let alone with reporters, but it was so early. I think it was like before the first game or after the first game. I think Ben mentioned Chip Kelly's contract and the fact that he didn't get extended. So I think this is either like the second to last year on his contract. So I think we get an extension soon, if things work in a positive direction. But yeah, I think the fact that you bring a good point there. Maybe if the wheels start coming off on this team, you lose to California in the season finale. Maybe you lose against an Arizona. Washington State's not on the schedule, so you can't really look at that one. But yeah, if for whatever reason you lose to California, you lose to USC in those final two games, and you had a loss to Arizona in there,
I mean,
then maybe do change directions. I mean, take it for what it is. Martin Jarman did not hire Chip Kelly, but I've talked to Martin Jarman one-on-one. He spoke very highly and says he continues to learn something every time he talks to someone like a Chip Kelly. But Martin Jarman is I've written a feature story on him. You go to ocregister.com, check that out. But Martin Jarman has done a lot of positive things for this athletic department. I think he likes Chip Kelly. If you ask him, obviously he's going to say he's not on the hot seat. It was kind of weird that he was on the hot seat. I understand why Chip Kelly started on the hot seat, and I think a lot of it too was the expectations of this being year 4 for him, for DTR, for Bo Calvert. Those are guys that know this program, and in some ways they put that expectation on themselves, saying, "Hey, this is year 4. Like, we can't." It was a year of significant improvement in 2020. This is our year. I think this is their year. I think they showed that in the first 2 games. Yeah, there's a hiccup, but I think that's what comes with college football. I mean, again, Ohio State was supposed to win the national championship this year. I mean, Alabama aside, and then they go ahead and they lose to Oregon on at home. So we'll see. You can lose to Fresno State. At this point, you cannot lose to a team like Arizona. Just going off of let's say 12-game schedule, which is what's on the schedule, 12 games. I think they finally get over 500, but I don't think 500 is the goal for this team. I think they go 8-4. Yeah, 8-4. I'll go 8-4. They could do better than that, but it can get uglier than that too. But I'll go 8-4. I think 8-4 would be a good season for UCLA, all things considered.
I think that's fair. I think coming into this past week, I was going to say 10-2, given what we had seen, the momentum.
Actually, you know what? Maybe okay. Wait, let me backtrack a little bit, because I'm looking at because if I'm thinking they're going to win the South, maybe I am a little low on them.
I'm going 9-3. I'm going 9-3. I think that's reasonable. I wasn't expecting the Fresno State loss. Granted, I respected them. I'm going 9-3 at this point. I think that's.
I'll go 9-3 too.
We think it is. If this is the team,
I just think those losses can't be against Pac-12 South teams. That's the thing, and that's why I backtracked a little bit, because I'm thinking, if 3 of your losses, your next losses come against the South, then how are you going to represent the South? But maybe you win the Washington game, maybe you don't win the Oregon game. Those are teams out of the North.
Utah has been not great either, so I'm not as worried as I was against Utah. I think Arizona State loss against BYU. I think that's going to be a challenge. Herm Edwards has that team playing disciplined football for the most part. Jaden Daniels, electric quarterback. I think he's awesome. Great. Probably the best secondary in the Pac-12 is with Arizona State. Chase Lucas, Jack Jones.
Yeah, Jack Jones had that play, yeah.
Every one of their starters has at least 25 starts under their belts. Good defense. If it came down, because the only play that really cost them was Merlin Robertson picked off the pass against BYU going down the sidelines. BYU receiver hustles down, punches the ball out.
I heard about it. Yeah.
I mean, that is such a big momentum change where Arizona State does everything right until the very last second. So, ASU is going to be tough. I think if we can beat Arizona State, I'm going 9-3. If we can't, 7 or 8 wins. James, thank you so much for coming back, for coming on, bro. This was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. I had a blast, and have me back anytime. Have fun talking UCLA football. There's always a lot, especially obviously, unfortunately, for Bruins fans coming off of a loss, but there's a lot to unpack. We'll see if the Bruins can get healthy and get things going the way they started. So should be fun. Looking forward to the season, and have me back anytime.
Absolutely. Bruin Bible, we're out.